James Cameron is back with the third and potentially final Avatar installment. I don't know what's going on with that narrative. I think a part of it is just James Cameron teasing the audience and laying down the groundwork for what might happen if this one doesn't make a fuck ton of money, right?
I'm sorry, but I'd be shocked if this doesn't make a fuck ton of money.
And, it's very difficult math in the sense that the audience reaction to the first Avatar was surprising and not at the same time, because for a lot of people, it was unlike anything they'd ever seen before. And the 3D, the immersiveness of that world and all of that stuff. And then it was a long, long time before Avatar: The Way of Water. And so there was a pent up excitement for that second movie. The third movie comes a mere 3 years after it. Now, Fire and Ash was shot simultaneously with The Way of Water. It was one of those situations where the story was very long and complex, and they decided to split it up into two movies. James Cameron has always said that he had a plan for 5 Avatar movies, but that these 3 movies would wrap up the main Sully arc that we started in the first film.
Yeah.
And it does. Rather satisfyingly, almost all of the plot threads, I think bar one, are wrapped up with this film. And the bar one, I'm not referring to who lives or dies because, hey, it's science fiction. Who knows? People can come back to life at any time, especially in a universe where you can transfer your consciousness from one being to another.
Yep.
But Avatar 3 is a very satisfying end to this first trilogy, if you will. I went into this a little apprehensive because I wasn't sure what to expect. I enjoyed the first Avatar. I didn't think it was the greatest movie of all time, but I could see why the mass public at large flocked to see it over and over again. I could understand why this movie resonated. What's interesting is that after this third movie, I think I recognize its greatness as a whole, as a trilogy. Like, this movie made me feel that James Cameron had an important story that he wanted to tell.
Right.
And I think part of it has to do with the fact that it's coming out in 2025 with the world the way it is. That this sort of big, epic, moralistic sci-fi storytelling, which doesn't exist anymore, mind you, is something that is quite important, especially given the everyday narratives that are happening. And it's interesting that James Cameron is the last of the directors to use metaphor in this way to make a very, very political point. And about a lot of things, right? Not just ecologically, but also about politics on Pandora, but actually also here on Earth.
Yeah.
I had a blast. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was better than the second one. I thought the pacing was much better.
I completely agree. I definitely enjoyed this the most of the 3, in fact. You can't compare 3 and 1 because 1 was really doing a lot of heavy lifting with regards to introducing the rules of the world and introducing literally a world to audiences. But I thought 3 was bang up great fun.
Original IP as well, right? I mean, when you say introducing the world to audiences, all of this ostensibly came from James Cameron's mind. And of course, obviously he was inspired by everything around him and the world around him. And even the Ash people in this movie, he says, were inspired from tribes that he met in Papua New Guinea. But at the same time, it's all gone into the blender of his brain and been regurgitated out as this expansive world that we see on Pandora. What's interesting about this movie, of course, is that it also highlights the fact that Pandora, at least the Pandora that we've seen, is a very small part of this universe. Every movie we get introduced to new elements and new tribes and new characters, and I realize how much more there is to this universe that he's constructed. And I have to say, this third movie made me excited about what's out there.
Mm.
And I think a lot of that stems from the fact that even though we live in a golden age of sci-fi television, there are very few movies like this. Like, these are the kinds of movies we watched growing up. I don't know if people are just afraid of spending the money and taking the risk, but nobody makes them anymore. I think James Cameron's like the last man standing and probably the only person with enough influence to be able to pull off something like this.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I feel like there is space in the world for films like this. There's space in the world for new, expansive IPs. And yes, we're all sick and tired of the extended universes that sort of has been brought on by the MCU. But once in a while, when someone does something like Avatar, you kind of just have to go with it, right? And I think that's the difference, right? The Avatar is the fruit of one man's loins. It's his brain that is carrying and imagining and doing all these things. It isn't the stretched version of a multi-character universe the way the MCU has done it.
Yes.
It's just gone too far. The MCU has stretched itself way too thin. However, with something like Avatar, you are still following the same characters. You're still following the same stories, right? It's sort of what Star Wars was.
A shallow reading of these movies often results in the same refrain, right? People just say, oh, he's making the same movie again and again and again. Or we've seen all of this before. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think he's making the same movie over and over again. I think he's telling one story over 9 hours. Could these movies be shorter? Yes, sure. However, I don't think they would be as immersive if they were shorter. I'm all for the 90-minute film, but when it comes to something like Avatar, I think there is so much to look at. And the visual scale of this film cannot be underplayed. It is unlike anything else in cinema. And I think there is so much to look at that you want to get lost in it. I would feel almost shortchanged if I didn't have this world to explore. And I think James Cameron knows it.
Yeah.
And I feel like his directorial style lends itself. It's very old school. It's very old fashioned. He isn't doing anything fancy. And yet, it is so accomplished in how he builds out this world and makes it completely accessible for you, the audience. At no point in this movie are you ever lost. At no point. And I think that is a strength of storytelling more than anything else.
Yeah.
I think I have two explanations, Bahir, as to the appeal of Avatar and why it kind of works. I think on the one hand, as we are watching something like this, it makes us feel on a subconscious level that we are connected to the mythology that is being put forward on screen because it's familiar.
It's very hard to talk about Avatar without falling too deep down the rabbit hole of, oh my god, this thing is beautiful and it's a technological marvel. And yes, it is. All that aside, yes, it is. But I feel like more so than Avatar The Way of Water, I think Fire and Ash has got a really satisfying story because it feels like it's a conclusion to 2 and 3. Way of Water really sort of falls between two stools a little bit because the first Avatar, like I said earlier, is introducing this world and it's introducing these characters and these rules and this new universe, and 2 was trying to sort of get us to where we're here at the end of Fire and Ash. But I think Fire and Ash on its own is a really satisfying story. You know, you had that chat with James Cameron and he talked about how where he took his characters emotionally, the arcs of these characters, they're not just going on an adventure. There's inner turmoil. There's growth that's connected to the first film and there's growth that's connected to the second film. There are emotional stumbling blocks for each of these characters. And I thought that to be able to do that in a film where that is essentially is the wrong word again, but that is a roller coaster ride. To still have emotional heartbeats and emotional weight and baggage and all these things, when you also have these really great action sequences, when you really also have these really beautiful set pieces that you're looking at.
And they are beautiful set pieces. They truly are magnificent. And those are the two things that I cannot explain that makes me excited about these Avatar movies. The first thing is that unlike, say, Star Wars or superheroes or whatever, all of the stuff that I kind of geek out over, right? Unlike those things, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about Avatar. Like, I think about it when I know there's a new one coming out, and I'm like, oh, I guess I need to rewatch it just to remind myself or whatever. But it really has no pop cultural footprint in my mind, right?
Yes.
And some would say it doesn't have a pop culture footprint in the world. However, that said, every time I put one on, I am immediately in it.
Yeah.
It just moves. And I am completely invested in what is going on. And I cannot explain that except to say that it must be really visceral, return to your root style storytelling. Like the campfire type stuff, which is why, like, James Cameron is one of the few directors that does voiceover really well. And if you look back at a lot of his movies, they feature voiceovers. Whether it's Linda Hamilton talking about the Terminator, like all of that is like these campfire style stories that pull you in a way that makes you go, oh, I want to find out what happens next. And I think that's the reason why. The second thing that I cannot put my finger on, and I've seen every single behind the scenes video there is a climactic battle at the end of Fire and Ash, right?
Okay.
I still have no idea how the fuck they do it. Like, I'm watching this movie and there are all of these set pieces. And yes, I know there's acting and motion capture and CGI work and all of this stuff. And I've seen the people do it on computers. But when it all comes together, I'm still sitting there going, holy shit, how the fuck did they do that?
The true sign of James Cameron's mastery of the art is the fact that in that big, almost, was it more than half an hour, 45-minute long fight sequence at the end?
At the end? Yeah.
You're never lost.
No.
You're never fucking lost.
You know where everyone is.
And there are multiple heroes. There are multiple protagonists, right? There are multiple antagonists here.
Actually, let's talk about that quickly before you go back to the action sequence, Bahir. That's something I find really, really fascinating, right? This is a major American studio film where there isn't a hero. It's taking a very almost Asian storytelling trope, right? It's communal. There is no major protagonist. Everyone has their own little story and everyone has their own moment. And it's actually community coming together to defeat the bad guys.
I kind of want to say it's an ensemble piece, but it's also not. Because in an ensemble piece, they're still fighting, they're still going one direction.
Yes.
They're still heading to one spot. It may be 7 characters, but it's still A to B.
Yes.
However, here, each one of those guys have got their own thing that they're dealing with. Yes, they're all fighting the dirty humans, but there's baggage that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's proof that James Cameron knows his shit.
He does. And yeah, just going back to that third act action sequence, right? And it is a massive action sequence. Yet again, it doesn't feel like the same CGI bish bosh boom bang stuff that we get with all the superhero movies.
I don't know how he did it. It's in the trailer, but when Neytiri and Varang, Una Chaplin's character, if you haven't seen the movie, you won't know the name, it doesn't matter. So when Neytiri and the big bad are both on their winged creatures and they run into each other mid-air, there's force.
Yeah.
I was watching it in the cinema and I sort of like jumped in my seat because it was a reaction I never felt. Even when I'm watching Superman fight Zod or any of the other sort of CG people doing CG things, there's real gravity here. It was so weird.
Weight.
There's weight. Yeah, it's a wide shot of these four computer generated things in a computer generated world that's flying into each other, and I felt the impact of the contact. James Cameron knows his shit.
This is the kind of cinema that makes us feel like kids again.
And I will say, after a pretty good 2025 where we've seen a lot of heroes, we've seen a lot of villains, we've seen a lot of these big movies, and even sort of really very, very good, heavy, dramatic films. It's nice to end the year with just a movie that reminds me I can be a kid again in a hall.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that is my biggest takeaway.
And if you are even considering not watching this in 3D, change your mind. Like, this is a true 3D experience because this movie was made in 3D. And of course, James Cameron developed the technology to be able to do that. But everything you've seen since is 3D conversion. The difference being you can put on your 3D glasses, you can lie down, you can tilt your head, you can move your face around, and there is no distortion.
Yes.
You're not getting a headache. You're not feeling nauseous. This is what the 3D experience should be. And it's something we've forgotten. Because a lot of the time, even Bahir and I, when we talk about 3D movies, we're like, it's going to be in 3D. And we roll our eyes and we know we're going to be exhausted afterwards.
I was rolling my eyes when I found out our press screening was going to be in 3D. I was kind of reluctant. I dare say I almost voiced that I might just go catch it myself later because that's how much I hate 3D.
Yeah.
But boy, I'm glad I didn't.
It's wild, man.
Because that James Cameron knows what he's fucking doing.
I know. Apparently, Bahir, in the US,
okay,
there is an IMAX 3D 4DX cinema.
Oh my god!
So not just IMAX 3D, but you get thrown around in your seat as well.
Oh fuck! Can you imagine those fight sequences, dude?
Oof. You know what the other thing is? And this, I think, is, yet again, just speaks to our time. It's amazing to see this movie come out now and know that every single frame was put together by human beings. James Cameron has a video out where he talks about how there's no generative AI at all in this film. And if you watch any of the behind the scenes stuff on YouTube, and there's a lot of them, you can see the artists and the artisans who have put their work into making this thing happen. And we've spent the last 5 years maybe experiencing so much mediocre CGI that this is a real example of what can be accomplished if people are given time and money and resources to be able to do something right.
Just this idea that generative AI will make things easier is fool's gold. Because there are things you don't want easier. You don't want music to be easier. You know what I mean? You want the musician's heartbreak, heartache, and suffering plus 4 years of playing the guitar or whatever to come through. You don't want Sona to just pull together a rhythm that you then rap over.
You don't want art to be easy, right?
You don't want art to be easy. Art needs to be earned, both for the artists and for the consumer of said art.
And we're not just saying that because easy art, as we have witnessed on the internet right now, is utterly disposable. You don't want to keep any of that. You will forget it as soon as you're done with it. And the effort that it takes to make something like this, and there is a lot of effort, is visible in every moment, in every frame.
And I think it's also worth noting that Weta built a lot of these things. In a lot of that behind the scenes footage, they made costumes. They made individual costumes for each of the characters because then they can give that to the CG artist and go, oh, here's what we've designed. Make it float in water.
Yeah. And, I went to Weta Workshop where they make all of this stuff. And yes, every costume is made. Every costume is tested in water, tested for wind. Every costume is designed with a character in mind. And if you pay attention and look at the background, it isn't just CGI replication either. All of these characters are wearing different things because they are individuals. That level of detail doesn't exist even in a $300 million Marvel movie.
Yeah. No.
No chance.
No chance.
And it's that kind of attention to detail, whether you notice it or not, that makes the experience just that much better. And I think the work they've done, the work that Weta FX has done with the facial stuff as well, is a real leap with performance capture.
Oof,
like there
yeah.
is a moment, and there's a clip of it on YouTube, when Varang is talking to Quaritch in her tent. And Quaritch is confronting her and explaining his worth. And she's cocky and arrogant, and she's like, I don't need you, human, blah, blah, blah. And when Quaritch tells her why he thinks she needs him, you see a micro expression on her face change. Now, that's something you only get with an actor, and it's because the performance capture has become so good, they've managed to translate Una Chaplin's performance in that way. Like, you see it, and I was like, holy shit, like that's a micro expression. That's acting.
Yeah.
That's not just an eyebrow going up, going, huh? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, it was very good.
Basically, what we're saying is
Yes.
story and delivery of said story is fantastic. 10 out of 10.
Also, this is a lot of movie, mind you. Like when
A
you
lot
go
of
into
movie.
this, there is a lot of movie. There's the ecological side, there is the colonialism, there is the violent resistance, there is the family story, there is the story of parents and their children, there is Quaritch's story with his estranged son, and Varang of the Ash people and how their religion has abandoned them, and questions of faith with Natiri and grief. I mean, fuck me, there is a lot of stuff going on in this movie, and it's all strung together really well. Like that for me is just, that's where the writing is solid. Yes, some of the dialogue in this movie is incredibly wooden, but I also think that's intentional because he's made this movie for kids. He's made this movie to skew pretty young, right? A lot of the dialogue in Star Wars is incredibly cringy and wooden as well.
That's terrible. Yeah. I mean, I also want to say that despite everything you just said, and it all coming through in a movie that runs about 3 hours, 15 minutes, I did not leave the hall as spent as I was after having seen a movie that's only an hour and a half. There are other movies out there that try to do a lot, and I'm left gasping for breath because I'm trying to keep up with what they're doing. And those movies are fine. In a movie that's 3 hours, 20 minutes, 3 hours, 15 minutes, yes, it feels long, but only because your bladder gets full. Only because your back starts to ache. At no point are you sort of sitting there thinking to yourself, man, how much more of this movie is going on? Because you're not bored. I was not bored. I was bored in The Way of Water, can I say? The Way of Water, I sat through because it's beautiful. This one I sat through because I was enjoying the damn ride.
Yeah, I was engaged throughout.
Completely throughout.
Go watch Avatar, Fire and Ash. Go watch it in IMAX 3D. You have to experience it on a massive screen in 3D. I might try some of the other gimmicky ones as well, just because I'm curious. Let us know what you think once you've seen it. You know how to reach out. We're on Instagram, on Goggler MY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my, or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline, 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.